Hi everyone! Today I'll be talking about one of the most popular fountain pens out there. This is the Pilot Vanishing Point. So here I actually have the Decimo version, which is a little bit slimmer, but same mechanism. And I wanted to share a little bit about its history, as well as how it came to be today, and what I personally like or don't like about it. So my experiences of this pen over the past year. So let's get into it. So I'll be writing on Tomoe River paper. This is 52 GSM, and here I'll be discussing the Pilot Vanishing Point. And right now I'm writing with the Decimo in extra fine, and I just freshly inked it up with a Kobe purple gray. So Kobe is actually made by Sailor. So Sailor makes all sorts of beautiful color for their inks. So, all right, here's the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo, and let's get into a little bit about its history. How did this pen come to be? This is one of the most innovative pens out there. It is actually a really beautiful blend of convenience as well as the pleasures of writing with a fountain pen. So it has a retractable nib. As you can tell, all you need to do is click and the nib pops out. All right, so the Pilot Vanishing Point was actually created in 1963, but let's back up a decade. So in the 1950s, ballpoints were made. Ballpoints took the world by storm. Before ballpoints, I think fountain pen was the pen of choice for the average person, but ballpoints offered a convenience that is unparalleled. I love ballpoints for a lot of things as well. And, you know, it just works. You sign documents with it. It's waterproof. It's cheaper. So ballpoints really took the world by storm, and it has remained the pen of choice for a lot of people because of its convenience and low cost. So even today, if you ask someone, "Can I borrow a pen?" they'll probably give you a ballpoint, and you know, that's just where we are in terms of writing utensils for a society. So ballpoints took the world by storm. It, you know, was really a change from the fountain pen. Before that, Pilot really centered their whole business on fountain pens, gold nib pens, things like that. But they started to evolve into ballpoint. But they didn't really want to lose all their fountain pen customers, right? So this is very strategic on Pilot's part. So give it a decade later, they came up with this amazing pen. They came up with something called the capless pen, which was the old name for the Vanishing Point. So they called it the capless fountain pen, and it really delivers on that name. It does not have a cap. For example, if you aren't that familiar with fountain pens, most fountain pens have a really robust cap on it, and it takes a few turns. It's not convenient because if you're on the go, you're holding things in your other hand, and then you have to put everything down to uncap it, recap it, and if you don't happen to put the cap on the back, you have to find a place to put this cap. So that's, you know, a little bit about why they called it capless. This was a huge innovative factor. A lot of fountain pen enthusiasts are like, no, if you're going to use a fountain pen, just sit down, take the cap off, put the cap back on. But, you know, we're starting to enter a different era. People want convenience. And they were able to pair convenience with the beauty of, you know, fountain pen writing. So they called it capless, and in that way, I think they were able to capture a lot of their original fountain pen user base, someone who wanted the blend, the in-between, and that was really cool to see. In 1973, they renamed it to Vanishing Point. In Japan, they still call it capless often, but Vanishing Point just has such a beautiful name to it because, you know, as an artist, you often talk about Vanishing Point, and it is exactly what it sounds like here too. So I just love that they rebranded it. So this model of fountain pen series definitely has been through some name changes. In the 1990s, they started to also call it Namiki Vanishing Point, or the Namiki capless pen. So Namiki was lending his, I guess, his branding to one of the most popular models of fountain pens that Pilot has ever made, and it's called Namiki. Nowadays, you don't often hear that. Namiki is more of a name reserved for their Pilot's very, very high-end pens, like in the thousands of dollars, more for collectors. But Namiki was the founder, so back in the day, that's kind of what a lot of people used to call the vanishing point. So if you hear that, that's, something from a few decades ago. And actually in the 90s, the vanishing point looked very different, and you might still be able to find some old ones floating out there at estate sales or auctions or pen shows. But the clip actually is very, very sleek, and I wish they kept it. But you see this bump right here? The ones from the 90s, they don't have that. It's just very seamless, so there wouldn't be a bump. It would just kind of like be a part of this whole pen. And I really like that streamlined look, and I wish it still kept that, because this could be a little bit more beautiful in terms of how they place this cap. But if you see one out there, definitely let me know. I'm very curious if you have one. What are your experiences with the older models? So, and then in 2005, they came out with the Decimo, and that is actually what I'm writing with right now. It is a slimmer version of the pen. It is a bit lighter as well, so I also love the colors the Decimo comes in. It has like champagne pink and this beautiful light icy blue, but the original standard actually gets more of the colors. The standard version gets red in. They have all these limited edition for the standard ones, but I love how sleek the Decimo looks. So the Decimo has actually been around for quite a while too, 2005. You think some of these pens, because of how innovative it is, you don't realize it has such a rich history dating back 50 years ago, over 50 years ago. So that's really cool. Here in 2006, Pilot came out with the Fermo, which is a twist mechanism, but also retractable. So instead of pushing down, you can twist it, and then the nib pops out. But I don't think it ever got the same type of traction the Pilot Vanishing Point did, and it makes sense. The Vanishing Point has many, many years of history. It has a really, really strong fan base for this pen, which I didn't quite realize that people sometimes exclusively use this pen. They collect this pen. And it has such a cool history, evolution, that it makes sense. And Pilot, for some reason, releases fairly nice colors for this series versus some of their other high-end series of gold nib pens. It's kind of interesting what they center their attention on in terms of color releases. And now I want to talk a little bit about what I personally like about this pen. I did want to point out that I just freshly inked this pen, and that's why it's writing so smoothly, but it actually has a very low ink capacity. So I'm going to write this as likes and dislikes, my personal ones, and other people might not have a lot of these issues either. So likes, convenience, right? I don't always have the time to take out a really beautiful fountain pen on the go. If I'm writing something down quickly in my planner, I just want to jot down an appointment. I really don't want to twist like 3-4 times or 3.5 times to get the cap off. So it's the convenience, and I can just jot something down very quickly and then push it back so it doesn't dry out. So sometimes I just want something that's easy, right? It's easy, it's beautiful. I do think it's a very beautiful pen. It's not too conspicuous. It's sleek and it's subtle, which avoids, too much attention drawn to the pen itself and more attention to actually what you're writing, which I really, really like. The nib, I really think it's very innovative. It's innovative. The nib unit is interchangeable. So let me show you right here. So let's say you wanted to just change this to a medium. All you have to do is buy a new nib unit. They're not cheap because it is gold plated, but all you would have to do, I mean, it's gold and rhodium plated. All you have to do is buy a new nib unit, put it in your old Vanishing Point body, and then you're good to go. So I really like that. You know, it has a innovative nib unit, interchangeable. So that's really nice. Dislikes about it, the converter. I'm pretty sure this is universal. I didn't realize this converter was so bad because, you know, I was like, oh, I don't need that much ink, especially with an extra fine. I could go a while. But then, you know, the ink capacity is so low, and when it's low, the pen will start skipping. Like, it will miss certain spots of your letters, and that gets a little bit annoying after a while. Sometimes you just want to ink it once and just have it good to go. And it's not really just about inking. It's actually very tricky to ink it with, because the ink, you have to put the ink through this little tiny hole here. It's hard to see, but it's a very tiny hole here, and you would have to have an ink bottle that lets it submerge enough to do it. So I can't really use a lot of my ink samples with as much ease because it has to be deep enough, and they're often like 3 or 5 ml, so it's not quite deep enough to get in there. But that's something kind of interesting too. And I didn't realize the converter was so bad. The converter is this little plastic piece here, which you can buy separately. There's not much ink left, but you can buy this separately. They're fairly cheap, but they're not super well made, and it's very finicky. And it is the it is the Con 40. It's the Con 40, so it doesn't hold that much, maybe 0.4 mLs. If even. You look at that, you're like, does it even fill 0.4? So the converter is not great. And it's difficult to draw up the ink if you're using samples. And I love getting ink samples because I get bored of inks, so I don't really want to buy too many full bottles of inks that, you know, maybe are too colorful or something like that that I'm not going to use too often. Difficult to use in sample bottles. Another thing that I am very impressed with is the colors. I am impressed with the colors on that. They have a lot of limited editions. They're very beautiful. Dislikes. Personally, I have gone back and forth on this extra fine nib. I wanted an extra fine nib because, well, because of that angle, I just drew that line. It's actually very thick, but I wanted an extra fine nib because Pilot doesn't make too many extra fine nibs in some of their like higher end pens. For example, I wanted to get the fine for the custom 823, and it doesn't come in extra fine. So I was like, oh, let me make sure I have diversity in my nib sizes. So that's something to keep in mind. But this pen is very dry. So I would use a more lubricated ink in it or more wet ink. And for some reason, the Kobe Purple Gray is one of the best inks I've put in it. It beats even the Iroshizuku Takesume, which, you know, this line of ink is very popular for, you know, someone who likes wet writers. And wet writers are good and bad in some ways because, you know, it doesn't dry, so it's going to blot on the other side. But even for some reason, the Purple Gray actually is very nice for this pen. It takes longer to find the right pen combo or pen ink combo or ink combo for this. Because if you use it too dry, it's like you're scraping with a needle point, and that's not something you want out of a, you know, very nice pen. So that's something to keep in mind. It takes time to find the right ink combo. For some reason, it really likes the Kobe ink, and Kobe blows my mind because it's made by Sailor, and I've used other Sailor inks in it, and it was very dry. So depending on how you hold the pen, it really varies the line width. So I think the line width for this feels right now like a 0.3, maybe 0.28. But if I use a really dry ink, it feels like a 0.25. So as a comparison to another Pilot pen, just draw that. You can barely tell, but it is a little thicker. And it really depends on how you angle it too, right? So that's the quirks of fountain pens. They have a lot of different variables about it. Something else I like about this pen, I like the 18K gold nib. And it's rhodium plated. I love that it is so seamless because it's rhodium plated, at least for my model here, it looks like it's silver almost. So it has a very sleek, minimalist, almost utilitarian design to it. And rhodium is very sturdy. All right, so those are some of my likes and dislikes. Some days I love this pen, and then some days I'm not feeling it. I don't quite know why. Maybe it's the paper. And then this might be more specific to the extra fine but finicky paper combo. It loves Tomoe River paper. It does not love American paper. It does not love even Traveler's Notebook, the Midori MD paper. I don't think it loves that either. Versus some of my other pens, I can use it across different types of paper without too much worry. This pen, I think it likes Hobonichi. It likes the Hobonichi. I will use this for my Hobonichi planner, so this is such a good one for planners. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. It has this a little bit finny. It's kind of like the Princess and the Pea, so it can tell when it doesn't like something, and it really only likes high-end things. So that's something a little bit quirky about it, but I just want to share a little bit of its rich history. It's so innovative for back in the day. It's still innovative today. So there are some other retractable pens. There's the Caritas. Obviously, there's the Firmo I talked about. Mahjong has one, which looks very similar to the Vanishing Point, but they made this in 1963. The quality control on this is very, very good. If you get a Pilot Vanishing Point, it's guaranteed to work right out of the box. And that's kind of what you pay for, so you want it to work right out of the box. I love this lacquer on it. It's so beautiful. It has a bit of a shimmer, which is really nice. And yeah, I think that shimmer adds something, and it doesn't really attract the dust on it. So it's pretty dust and fingerprint resistant, which I really like. So it looks clean all the time. Print resistant lacquer. And I'm not going to talk anything about the clip, because the clip some people like and some people dislike. I'm neutral about it. So some people this would be a deal breaker because it's not comfortable to write with the clip. And some people it helps them position their hand better. So it actually helps them write with a fountain pen. So I think a clip is neutral for me. I don't think it helps me. I don't think it harms me. So I'm not really going to place it with likes and dislikes. But if you are thinking of getting this pen, definitely try to find it in a store first. Try your hand with it. Try to write a full page with it. And if it's comfortable, then look into it, because this is a deal breaker for a lot of people too. Yeah, because you don't want your pen to roll away. That's why they put the clip, but they did put it here instead of the back end. I also did drop this pen. You can tell there's a little bit of a dent there. I don't fault Pilot on that because I'm the one who dropped it, but it would be nice, because I've dropped, pens like this. It's a plastic pen. I've dropped other pens and it never, dented or anything. So I think, it does pain me that it has a dent, but I'm embracing it. It looks used, which is nice. I like when things look like I've been able to enjoy them. So maybe in the future they'll have more dent resistant pens, but in the meantime, I'll just be more careful. So that's not really a like or dislike. Just want to share what happens if you drop this pen. A dent happens. As long as you don't dent the whole, unit, nib unit, then, you know, even if you do, you can, I guess, replace it so it's not a total loss. Yeah, so thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Pilot Vanishing Point, its history, and what are your experiences with it? I think this is one of the most popular pens out there, so let me know, are you a Vanishing Point user, and what have your experiences been? So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!